stories don't define you. How you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker of Elkins Consulting. In my work with coaching clients, I guide people to improve their communication using storytelling as the foundation of our work together. What I've realized over years of coaching and podcasting is that the majority of people don't realize the impact of the stories they share on their own internal messages and on the people they're sharing them with. My work with leaders and people who aspire to be leaders follows a similar path to the interviews on my podcast, uncovering pivotal moments in their lives and learning how to share them to connect more authentically with others, to make their presentations and speaking more engaging, to reveal patterns that have kept them stuck or move them forward, and to improve their relationships at work and at home. This week's episode of the podcast is a sneak peek of the audiobook, Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will, to be released in mid-November. As a special bonus for listeners, the book will include 2 songs recorded by my band, Spare Change, in my living room in Montana. Keep an eye out for announcements through LinkedIn and via my Elkins Consulting Facebook and Instagram pages, or visit my website, elkinsconsulting.com, to learn more. I am so excited to introduce my listeners to Meg Nocero. We met through this was yet another fantastic introduction from Frank Agan. That guy is like magical networker from heaven. He has done so much for me in my book and so many others. So thanks again, Frank. Anyway,
Meg,
welcome to Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will. So I always begin by asking my guests to share something about themselves that most people don't know. This would be something that's not in your book bio or in your LinkedIn profile. What's something about you that will give our listeners some context for what they're going to hear in your stories over the next 30 minutes?
Well, I like to think that I am a magical manifester. And one of the stories that most people don't know, although it's out there, I don't keep it a secret. When I graduated from college and I basically did not have a clue what I was going to do for my future, I literally came home and I was like, what next? I had a language major. I was Spanish major in Italian concentration. And I moved from Boston back to Miami. And I just really had no vision. I thought I was going to go to law school, but I wasn't sure. And it was a strange time. It's what people call the gap year now. But before I actually, we didn't have that. They were like, what the heck you're going to do year versus, you don't bring shame on the family. Don't think you're going to live in my house. You better figure it out to that literally gap year that a lot of kids do now. But I got a trip. My parents gave me a trip to go out to California to celebrate my graduation. So I came home and one of my very good friends, my roommate at the time, Tracy Livingston, she invited me out there to stay with her family. So we went out to California and she got tickets to go on The Price is Right. And I was like, before she told me, I was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to go on The Price is Right and spin the wheel. That was the only thing that I ever dreamed of when I was a kid. Everybody, when we're sitting home from when we're sick from school, we're watching TV at 12 noon, when Bob Barker came on and all these people were like, come on down, the whole shebang. And I was like, I always remembered how cool would it be to spin the wheel and hit $1. That was it. I wanted $1 on the wheel. So we go out to California. I go out to California. I have a wonderful time with Tracy. Her family is incredibly lovely. They're very engaging, welcoming, the whole shebang. They got us tickets to go to The Price is Right, but you have the whole process where you have to sit online from the crack of dawn in the morning. And as we discussed, not that much of a morning person at all. So, having the instinct or the excitement to go was just enough, to get us out in the door. And I think it was like really super early in the morning. We're waiting and we got into, they count off the people who are waiting. And we got into the second showing that morning. And, when we go through the line, it was kind of interesting because I always wondered how they pick the candidates or the contestants on The Price is Right. So I was sitting online and I was just a college kid. Like I am already enthusiastic now, but I was way over the top back then. Like literally, I'm on vacation. I graduated from college. This is fun. I'm with my roommate. I love her. And
as soon as you said Price is Right, I was like, oh my gosh, you'd be perfect for The Price is Right.
Like the whole come on down, right? Come on down.
Woo!
So the lady in line, they ask you a question. What do you do? And I was just like, I do nothing. I was like, I just graduated from college and I'm here to celebrate with my roommate and her family and just, experience California for the first time. And this is my first, step onto a major studio, right? A lot. And I go, I don't do anything, but I had the Boston College, shirt on, the sweatshirt on. So anyway, so everyone's all excited. Then they call you in, you go in and they sit you in the rows and everybody, this huge fervor of energy because you've been there with these people all morning. I mean, it's like a process, like 5 hours we're already together. So we all know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's like you already know these people. They're like your friends now. I make fast friends all the time. And, it starts, the lights go up, and, that guy, I don't know his name, he's like, and the first contestant on, contestant row is Margaret Nocero. Come on down.
Oh my God.
Like, ah! So I was the first one called on down. And you know what they always say, like how you always imagine how it is that you feel when you get that, that thing. And I was like lost my brain. So I was jumping up and down like a crazy person, And mind you, I was 21 years old too. So that goes to a long way.
That contributes.
Added energy that I don't think a lot of us have nowadays. But, I got on contestant row and you know what? I have to tell you, I like things when I see it and I don't really bargain shop. So I don't know prices, which is something that you actually need to know when you're on contestant row and you're bidding for these things. So, the first round goes, the second round goes, I'm losing and losing and losing. And I was like, what the hell is happening? Then my friend behind me, who I met that morning, he goes, I'm a clockmaker. And we were bidding on a grandfather clock. He goes, bid this. And I go, all right then, and I did. And then finally, I got off of contestants row. So I finally got off contestants row. I played the one that Squeeze play where you pick a number and it comes out. Anyway, long story short, terrible. I'm terrible. It was for a car. I had no idea how much a car was. I was a college, graduate. I was like, I don't know. I lost the game. Then we came to the wheel. And we're all getting excited about the wheel. By this point in time, I had a lot of people in the audience who were really kind of eager for me because, first of all, I don't know if they felt sorry for me. They could have.
You're the underdog.
Or that I just had so much energy that I was so excited about being there. I was just super excited. And then I got to spin the wheel. My God, dream come true from childhood. And I'm sitting there, it's my turn. The first guy goes, he's one of those vets, Navy vets, so there's our typical Navy vet person, moves aside. He didn't spin very high, but it was enough to get him into the, and then comes me and I spin the wheel. I turn around, don't watch. I'm like closing my eyes so the drama builds, right? Spin the wheel and it hit $1.
Oh my gosh.
It hit a friggin' $1. So of course, I am jumping up and down like a crazy person. But mind you, they always say you get what you ask for, right? And right. What did I say? The only thing that I ever wanted on Price is Right was to spin the $1 on the wheel. Well, the girl behind me also spun $1, but like 60 and 40 cents. So we had a spin off. So the drama continues. So if I had not had her, with me, then the spin-off would have been great because I spun 5 cents, which I got $5,000. So I sit there with $6,000. Yes, it was crazy. Of course, jump up and down and like the crazy person Meg again. And then she just spun like 25 cents or something. So she gets to contestant row. But everybody's like, they said, oh, but you lost. I go, no, I did not lose. I totally won. You have no idea. If my vision, my desire was to spin $1 on the wheel, and then I spun the 5 cents, which is the green space, I totally won. And that was probably one of the most incredible stories of something that came from possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And how, you don't never know when your dreams come true. But you definitely need to pay attention and say yes when the opportunities arise so that you can find yourself in that space at the table, wherever you want to call it, so that you show up with this high intention of like, oh my God, this could possibly unfold. Oh my God, this is going to happen. And, that is something that I think no one really knew. No one ever heard the whole story. They may have seen the video because I have a very good friend who back in the day, they took the VCR tape and they taped it since it was like 1991. So that was a long time. I'm dating myself. But that was one of those moments in my life that really kind of solidified the power of intention and possibility. So there you go. And that is a huge theme throughout my stories. That is a huge, powerful theme if you start to own that, because, you go from nothing good happens to me to, oh my God, something magical or wonderful is always about to happen.
Right, right. And what I love about that first story was just simple. It was so simple that you knew you won because you had met that ultimate goal, the wish of spinning the wheel. Like, so many people would have been like, oh, but I could have won a car. But that wasn't your goal.
Wasn't my goal.
And it wasn't even like a thought in your head. So thinking about it from that negative perspective, there's no natural instinct for you to do that. And I think that's a really important aspect of understanding that possibility. And I think that's part of the drive behind your first book.
Yes.
That whole idea that you also have to know that whatever those possibilities are, you need to embrace them and appreciate them, show the gratitude that you have for them, because then it opens the door for more possibility into the future.
Well, yeah, because no one's ever going to tell me that those things don't happen, because I know they do. It's like, exactly. Oh, yes, they do. And, I could tell you things from my childhood, the same thing. I'm told that this is a long shot for you. Well, not for me. It's not a long shot. I mean, as long as I engage, the world and the way that I engage the world. But, what you said is really important for everyone who's listening today, that the story that I want to tell may be different than a story someone else wants to tell. Maybe, they're thinking that, they wanted to go to contestant. I don't know. That's a silly example, but bottom line is I was happy. And it's all about happiness and what makes you happy and what brings you that bliss, that attainable state of bliss. And ultimately, I got on TV a long time that my friends all over the country were watching it on that September date that it actually unfolded. So it was like, is that Meg? A lot of people say that a lot. Is that Meg? And it comes down to the fact is, it is. And I believe that what happens with me is that because they see me living this life of my dreams, they give them permission to do the same. And that is that's really what I'm going for in my journey, is to have other people inspired to come alive to the beauty of their dreams, which is completely different than mine. But that possibility does exist.
Well, you kind of make it look easy. And I think that I think that's the trick, because I find that in some of the work that I do, that people then say, oh, I've always wanted to do that. And the fact that I've made it look relatively easy gives them the confidence to try. Yes, so I think that's a big part of your success with inspiring others, is that ability to say, hey, it isn't as hard as you're making it out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one really amazing factor is that when you realize that you don't have to take huge leaps into the future, you don't have to I think that really is the thing that overwhelms a lot of people, is that their goals are big and they think they'll never get there. But the reality is, if you take small incremental steps toward those goals, you realize that, within a year, you're actually further along than you actually thought you could be, because you started. And, I had to graduate from college to get my parents to pay for a trip out to California, where my friend lived and my roommate lived. And, it's amazing. It's amazing to think that, all these things had to, it's kind of like all these things had to unfold. But that's the beauty of the story, right? Mm-hmm. I always say, oh, but look at the story. If it were simple, then maybe that's not something that you would want to tell. Or, maybe if it was very empowering, the bottom line is maybe that's something that totally aligns with you. And that is simple and that is effortless. And, you have to figure out what that means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to move back into that whole part of the conversation, which is, if you don't know what your idea is, if you can't put a story to the future that you have in your head, mm-hmm. then you can't get there. So I think it's also important to understand kind of having that big audacious goal.
Yeah.
And thinking that one day I want to be a famous keynote speaker, or one day I want to be a published author, or one day I want to, what is it that you really want?
Yeah.
What is it that when you think about being successful at whatever it is, whatever that dream is, when you think about that, maybe it's to be a parent, maybe it's to have a 50-year marriage. Like it could be, and it could be all of those things, right? You don't have to pick one. And I think it's so important to kind of imagine yourself in that role and imagine how it feels to be in that place. Like visualize yourself in that place. If it feels good, figure out what those steps are going to take to get there. But I know for me, I imagined myself as a parent when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and it did not feel right at all. Because all my friends were talking about, one day getting married and having kids. I'm like, whoa, hell no. I was visualizing myself changing diapers and picking up after babies, and it just didn't appeal to me at all. Now, that changed. Clearly, I have two amazing young men for children, 19 and 22 at this point.
Wow.
But at the time when I visualized myself in that place, it didn't appeal to me at all. So I think if you are setting certain goals, if you are not visualizing yourself there and really digging in to find out if that's going to make you light up, if it's going to make you go, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. If it doesn't do that, you need to really rethink those goals.
I agree. You don't want to live someone else's life. That is clearly not why we're here. And I don't want to live anyone else's life. And maybe I'm not ready at a certain point in my life and I have to learn or do or express or become something else before I decide to do that thing that like you said, you didn't want to have kids initially, but then ultimately down the road you were ready. So timing is everything. And literally, you know yourself, to thine self be true. That's, one of the best advice anyone can give you, because, when you're ready, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and these kids are probably at the time were your teachers for many years. I know that mine are. Sure. But I know that as a very, stubborn student for many years, I probably wouldn't have been good for either parties to enter into that engagement, at least earlier on in my life as well. So I totally hear what you're saying and totally agree. And, it's always like, this is what I believe today. But, as we get more wisdom and live our lives and the experiences that we gain through opportunities that we say yes to or no to, then that is certainly something that we use the information so that we can write a better story or a narrative that we choose to live out, which is exciting. Very exciting.
Exactly. Well, speaking of stories and narratives, tell me a little bit about your first book, and then I definitely want to get our audience excited about the second book and the memoir that is going to come out soon.
So with the first book, I am an avid writer. I do like to write, and my profession, I am a lawyer, a trained lawyer. So I was practicing as a lawyer for nearly for 20 years, and so I knew how to legally write, but in legalese. But at this point, when I lost my mother, and I don't think that that was kind of like the beginning of this whole writing process, more so for me, that I actually made a cathartic routine, because I needed to help myself out of the Hamilton says, write your way out, right? Write your way out of a very sad situation, which for me, it was depression, because I lost my mother. She died of breast cancer in April of 2011. So I started to write basically on the advice of someone who is a psychotherapist, saying that, you need to have that connection. We all are connected. And I think when we feel cut off to those connections, then that's very sad for the human person, because we thrive on safe connections. I'm not saying the bad ones, but we thrive on those connections where we feel a safe space that we can grow and evolve and the like. So bottom line, I started writing, I started connecting to my mom by virtue of channeling what wisdom she would give me. And ultimately I started blogging these insights of the day. And it turned into, then I started, oh my God, I have so many, but it was not until I was standing on, I'll step back. Somebody actually read my blog that is, someone who I didn't know, a stranger who became someone who is kind of a mentor and a cohort and supporter of mine, Amy Butler. And she had asked me to share my work with her readers, because she's a designer and she was doing a book called Blossom. And Blossom is a fantastic magazine of artistic expression. And mind you, this is a dream I had as a kid, to be a part of that creative world, the creative expression, in such a way that I got to play in that field. I got to play in that realm. So her inviting me into her world, her creative world, was such a gift. And then it actually gave me more confidence to show up more in line with my writing. So, that was wonderful. I was a part of that process. And then, so I was on stage with Oprah in 2014. And, it was a really wonderful story. I tell all about it in my memoir. But the bottom line with regard to that is actually, I always imagined that how I would be called down to the stage would be the same as The Price is Right. I always thought so. It's like, why wouldn't it? And they say, those experiences that you have, you want to imitate those. So literally, she called me, Meg, come on down. She said the same words. And I ended up on stage by virtue of my friend Mari, who was up there. She said that she wanted me to come up on stage with her. So we're having this moment. And Oprah says to me, live the life you want. And here I am, this dream of being a published author. I was like, well, that is something that I want. And if I have to make that a reality, I'm literally being told by someone who many thought would be impossible to have a moment with on stage. So I had this happening. So I pay attention to those big moments, and they build on the little moments. And all those things that I had done writing for so long, I compiled it into the Magical Guide to Bliss, and I followed my own guide. So I followed my own guide to the career that I wanted. And that's where I stand right now. I followed it. And then, ultimately I had to make the decision, do I stay where I was? And it became more of an issue of fear of the unknown, fear of the uncertainty of what would happen if I jumped off and took that leap of faith. And I think at that point, I was also having a lot of things that were happening all around me that I didn't like seeing unfolded. And then on the other end of the spectrum with my writing, Lin-Manuel Miranda from Hamilton, sent me this review on my book that it was, I should be praised. Yeah, a Magical Guide to Bliss. So I was awesome. I love you. Not so sure about this, So I'm like, okay. And then literally wonderful things happened. I met a wonderful man and his Love Button Global movement out in California. And he invited me out there. I got to meet him and his whole mission. And I knew that I couldn't speak my truth any longer where I was. I had to take that leap of faith. And to do so, by the way, when I went out to California, one of my favorite bands is Coldplay. And literally when I was going through the process and the grieving process, I would listen to music because music really empowers me. Mm-hmm. So I would listen to music. And one of the songs that really helped me through the grieving process was Yellow by Chris Martin. And I actually was invited by this wonderful man, Dr. Habib Deji, and his wife, Dr. Sammy. And they both invited me out to Chris Martin's house to see a private concert. Yeah. So I'm sitting there once again. Do I make a decision to jump or do I stay? And, one of those things for me, I need to have big things happen to me. So I pay attention. I'm stubborn, I'm scared. I think we all are to a certain extent, will this be something? And I never wanted to put my family in harm's way as long as, the financial sector, et cetera. But I was like, okay, this is all leaning toward, the universe is going to support me. God will support me. The divine will support me. And, making that bet on myself, taking that bet on myself. And, the journey has continued. My Magical Guide to Bliss, I published it in 2015. I did a republishing it in 2017 as a author, not as a federal attorney. And I've published every year since as either a collaborator in a book or, on my own, because now my second book came out 2 weeks ago. So I'm happy to announce that, called Sparkle and Shine. It's a handbook of affirmations, 108 mantras to brighten your day and lighten your way. Kind of those affirmation tools that help you boost your story on, that you speak positivity, impeccable words like the 4 agreements say into your life, so that you can come from that place to at least start setting different neural pathways, neuroplasticity of your brain, setting new pathways that you can set new habits, and you can come from that place to engage the world from a place of positivity and optimism and whatever confidence speaks to you,
Confidence. So, can you read one of those or 2 of those?
Oh, well, you have to pick a number. If you pick a number, I'll correspond. Okay. If it's 108, so you pick a number and then
start with 50 because I turned 50 this year.
Oh my God. Okay. So 50 it is. Okay. So 50. So you are there's 3 sections of the book: ask, believe, and receive. And then this section, the number 50 is let me see here. I should know it by heart. God knows when you write books, like, you're
Oh my
like,
gosh.
you're in it.
When we did our launch, I wanted to read one section of the book. I couldn't find it. I couldn't remember.
Oh, you're kidding. I love that.
One of my friends said,
surprised.
It's right here, because she had already read the book.
Well, I would laugh because I would be surprised if you had memorized it, because you know it so well. But after a while, once you finish it, you're just like, I can't anymore. Like, I need a break. So number 50 is I stand in my beauty and shine. And the mantra insight is, you show the world how strong you are. Let hard work define you. Let perseverance guide you. You show the world how awesome you are. Let that message of wonderment ring true. Let that vision become you. You show the world how courageous you are. Let your authenticity guide the way. Let your unresolved anger dissipate and allow joy to take its place. You show the world how fabulous you are. Let grace bathe over you. Let your uniqueness as a child of love advance you confidently through. Stand in your beauty and shine. So there you go. That's Sarah's gift to everyone today, of her mantra. I stand in my beauty and shine, which is always a good thing.
Can you send that to me, and I can include that as a sneak peek on the blog post? Great.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners, I'll have a link to the book, to both books, and I'll have that mantra listed as just written into the blog post associated with this podcast episode.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I just want to go back one part of the conversation before we wrap this up. And I'm just so curious about the first things you started writing after your mother's death, when your counselor said, you need to write, you need to express that connection that you have with your mother. And the reason I'm asking this is that when I started writing around the time that my father died, I started writing, really writing, like I was writing before that, but this was a different kind of writing. Yeah. And I wrote this analogy that still sticks with me. It's actually in the book. It's the last section of my book. And it was really cathartic. And I never thought about writing as catharsis for me before that. And even now I look back and I think that's not really how I found my peace with him, but it definitely contributed to my choices in how I found peace with him and with his death. So what were you first writing, and what was one of the pieces you wrote that has stuck with you that you think about when you think about your mom, or when you're thinking about that time in your life?
One of the ones that I wrote that I love, and it's the lesson she taught me, and I'm going to get a little weepy because, it was something that she used to say to me all the time when I was a kid. And I didn't really believe in myself. And I really was like, well, what am I doing in this world? There are mean people out there, like literally coming for you. It's like, I had a lot of issues around bullying when I was a kid. And, I was like this, I'm just here to have a good time. Like, I was like, I see beauty everywhere. Why do you got to call out? Why do you have to pick on me in ways that are just hard for a young child to sustain, especially when you're a magical person, because then they're really like, who are you to believe that? So my mother used to tell me all the time, and this is something that has really stuck to me. I don't know why you're going through what you're going through, but there's a bigger purpose to it, because someday when you heal, you're going to help others. And she told me a lot of, we butt heads a lot when I was growing up, but as an adult, we had a really amazing relationship. She really was my grounding and my foundation. So when she passed away, I lost that. And, I imagine that peace that you were seeking is like, what peace? I'll never have peace again. That was truly what I thought. And that's a little overwhelming, because when you're actually feeling the loss, which you really feel because you loved so much, then you have to somehow, find a way to feel safe again. And do so in a way that is comfortable to you, where trust, and I'm not a person who trusts very easily. I was a prosecutor for almost 20 years. Like, I don't like when people lie to me. I can tell it a mile away, but I trusted her. And as long as I had her, I felt like I would be okay. Anything else?
Foundation.
Foundational. Like, so I was like bullied terribly as a child, but I always went back to her, and she's like, I'm like protection, the nurturer, and the mother. Right. So I had to learn how to nurture myself. And the thing was, I had to actually compile all that wisdom into something that I could tangibly keep because her impact on my life, and my father's for that matter, and my sister's as well. But that was real, and I needed to actually feel something real because she physically was not there any longer. Mm-hmm. And that being said, that's really what started my journey. What is awareness? What is consciousness? What is real? What is illusory? What am I feeding myself that doesn't serve me well? What am I feeding my soul that serves me well, that will power me forward? And I'm very discerning. When I see people coming at me, then trying to like have me drink their Kool-Aid, I'm like, whoa, you need to stop right now. You don't know who you're dealing with here. You don't try to scare me. I do have fears, but you can't scare me, because I come back to a place of, is this something that is from a place of love or from a place of fear? So I can actually step back. But I feel so confident in the fact that now I was really blessed by having a mother who really challenged me and challenged my sisters. And the education that we got by virtue of my parents was like, I went to a Jesuit university. They were always like, question everything. So I do not take anything anyone says to heart. I'm like, I'm going to look into that and I'll get back to you. But the bottom line is you become a critical thinker. And that's one of the gifts that she gave me. So back to the whole point of what you asked me, what is that thing that I started with, and the lesson that I hold true is the fact that she doesn't, you don't know why you're going through this, but it will help someone someday if you are vulnerable enough to share from a place of having walked that journey as well. And the other thing that she told us all the time is live, laugh, love. I mean, like, what is life without laughing? What is life without love? What is life without truly living? And when you're stuck in a place of fear, it's hard to actually embrace those concepts. Mm-hmm. But, I was told the other day, you can learn a lot of wisdom through pain, but you can also gain the same wisdom through joy. So maybe that is the path that I walk, ebbs and flows of life. But so my focus is on more of the joyous, lifting people up rather than tearing them down, finding the good, even if I might not see it readily. So I think that is, really, the whole, golden rule. We love one another as we would like that to happen to us. Take care of each other, and I'm still on my journey. I'm still here, so it's still happening, and the story is still
and it's still magical.
Yes, so for sure, and to meet people like you and your magic, bringing that into my life is such a gift, and I do appreciate those gifts. I do not take anything as if it is the little things. They are the big things.
Yes. And that actually brings us right back to the beginning of our conversation before I hit that record button, which I'm disappointed I didn't hit it just a couple minutes earlier, was that it is the little things that matter to people. It's not the grand gestures. And while grand gestures are appreciated, I can tell you, as you're telling me the story of your mom, my mom said something so similar to me. She said, these experiences, they're trials for you. Mm-hmm. And if you dismiss them, if you walk away from them and give up, they're just going to keep coming back to you.
Yes.
Yes. And she would have said the same thing had she had those words. This is for a greater purpose.
Yeah.
That's not what she said, but I understood that in what she said, even when I was 18 and struggling. Like it was such a hard time. And she said that to me, and I remember it so vividly. And the other thing that popped into my head as you were telling that story, I'm a very visual person. I'm all about analogies. I was thinking about a building and its foundation.
I love that.
One corner of it started to crumble when you lost your mom. Mm. Like you could feel the foundation starting to crumble, and you felt unstable. You felt unbalanced, like there was something not right, and you couldn't quite get your feet under you. And I'm tearing up a little because I'm thinking about my dad now. And what I think about with your book and what you did by putting your mother's words together like that and sharing them with your sisters and your dad, you were basically shimming that side of your foundation.
Yeah.
I mean, I was imagining actual shims, like that you do with construction where you're shimming, but that wouldn't have been enough for a building, a home. So you were shimming it with her words and her spirit, the embodiment of those in your book. I'm imagining this concrete block made of your book under that corner of your home so that you can feel that stability again. And it just gave me a chill just thinking about it. So thank you for that visual. I mean, I know that wasn't something you specifically said, but that was the vision you gave me. So I think I'm going to hold on to that for a while.
Oh, thank you. It's funny. It's not funny. Oh my goodness. The reality of life, my dog is acknowledging the space.
Yes.
Yeah, acknowledging. The reality of life is very interesting because, our words go out into the world and we don't know how they'll be received, and everyone has a similar or different interpretation to that intention. But, the gift is that you're giving that gift so that they can be received and that they could take a life of their own. And you don't, we were talking about before, like, I'm very stubborn with regard to my visual process, that the vision that I want for whatever path, because, I'm stubborn and type A. But when I can step back and just offer it up and trust that the people who need to hear it, I need to hear it, will come back to me in different ways, like you explaining that story. Because for me, yeah, exactly. It's shoring up that foundation that was, I'm a butterfly. I don't like to be grounded, but I had her. So her grounding truly freed me to do what I wanted to do. And now that I feel, I have that foundation again, it's much more, she's still with me. And that's how we are connected in this world, regardless of whether we see people on today, tomorrow, the next day, their impact stays with you. Mm-hmm. And you do with it what you like. And I think that's really beautiful to use that as a part of the future of your story and to empower you into that beautiful, amazing possibility that life is just waiting for you to grab hold on.
Perfect. That's a perfect place to wrap this up. Meg, thank you so much. It's been such a beautiful hour to spend with you. I've just really enjoyed hearing your stories and having this thoughtful conversation. So thank you.
You too. I appreciate you. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
So for our listeners, there will be a blog post associated with this podcast at elkinsconsulting.com. I will have links to the 2 books and maybe a sneak peek into the 3rd book. And I will have ways for you to reach out to Meg, whether it's through LinkedIn, which is part of how I've been in touch with her, or through her website. And I look forward to hearing the comments on this podcast. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will. The book of the same title is now available, and the audiobook version will be released in November 2020. If you're ready to uncover your stories and learn to uncover the stories of the people around you to create stronger connections and healthier communities, visit elkinsconsulting.com. And while you're visiting the website, you can learn more about the book and the work we do to improve communication among teams and through our one-to-one coaching. Thank you.